Hello, everyone. This is Kevin again. I'm continuing a theme here. I just put out a short video on comparing two GPOs, essentially looking at the ability to detect configuration drift. And I did that all through the GUI, through the GPO reporting pack, especially from GPO Compare, the component of the reporting pack that does side-by-side comparison of GPOs. I wanted to take a minute and do the exact same thing, but from PowerShell. And I think this can be sort of enlightening because when you get to the point where you know what you want to accomplish, sometimes it's really nice to be able to drop that down to your automation layer and create a repeatable process that just happens. And that's sort of what I wanted to talk about briefly. It might not be end to end, but I think we'll hit some of the main points. Okay, so again, we're sitting here in PowerShell. There is one command that we are really looking at here, and this is called compare SDM GPO. And it's a single commandlet. There's two commandlets that come with the reporting pack. Export SDM GP settings and then compare SDM GPO. They're pretty intuitive, but to be perfectly honest, make sure, because this is your friend, you take a look at this. Get help compare SDM GPO is the commandlet that you want to look at, and then look at all of the content. There's a lot in here. The engineering team did a really good job of putting in good examples and documenting the parameters, and once you get used to it, it's a bit of a no-brainer. But the idea of the commandlet is just perform comparisons of GP settings on live or backed up GPOs, and also the other side of the reporting pack is the GP exporter, and you can compare those snapshots as well. Let's jump into this. If you've watched the other video, I have a GPO called GPO-A. I have a GPO called GPO-B. I have a backup of GPO-A. So at one point, these two group policy objects were the same. They had the exact same settings in them. And what we're trying to accomplish is figure out a way to determine that the configuration is drifting from the norm or from my expectation. And what we want to avoid is this. Click, settings, review, read, blah, lots of extraneous information that could be, but possibly is not helpful. Oh, and then let's do it again on the second GPO. You know, I may or may not have caught a difference here, but this is a GPO with a handful of settings in it. This is not a GPO with thousands of settings or 1,000 settings or 100 settings. So we want to avoid that because obviously it's time consuming, it's a little error prone, and it's not super helpful. All right, so let's get back to this. The first thing is let's look at this simple compare SDM GPO of two GPOs. GPO1 is called GPO-A, and the GPO2 or GPO name B is called GPO-B. And that's all I need to do here, to be perfectly honest. I can just go and dump all of the contents or grab all of that information and dump the contents to the screen. Now, some of this is interesting. Some not so much. I love this commandlet, out grid view, because I can take these contents and instead of dumping them to the screen, just for the purpose of learning the commandlet and making sure that all is good in the world, I can dump it to this grid. And now I can go through this grid in a side-by-side manner and look at these bits, look at these bits of data. And some of them may be helpful or maybe not. But look at this. Here's one setting. This setting is enabled in setting A. It's not enabled in setting B. I have a diff type here called missing in B. Now, all of that is good learning for me. I'm using the console. I'm using PowerShell interactively, but I'm learning something that I'm going to be able to utilize down the road from an automation perspective. Diff type. I'm only comparing two GPOs, setting A and setting B, or GPO A and GPO B. I have a value here called diffs type, or a property. Okay, so now I want to do this again and say, use my trusty where object. The property I'm looking at here is called diff type, and I can say diff type is like, and then I can use some wildcards. So how about the word missing exists in diff type? Okay, you can get way more complex than this, right? You can do a lot of different criteria matching or querying on specific criteria so that you can narrow down for what you're looking for. But imagine you're just looking for drift. You're going to be able to create a script that says, compare these GPOs and show me every setting where the diff type has missing in it. Or if you're comparing multiple GPOs, you're going to have to get a little more complex. But the reality is it's pretty darn simple to be able to look at that. Let's look at this one more time. If I'm looking at compare GPO A, GPO name B, what other parameters do I have here? I can choose GPOs from different domains. I can choose, like I mentioned before, snapshot paths. I'm dumping this data out with a specific delimiter. You can change that delimiter, define it, whether it's a pipe. If you notice in the path, it's using the pipe. You can use the backslash or whatever you need. Do I want to collect metadata? All kinds of interesting information is going to be available to you. You're going to have to sort of spend your time learning what these different parameters do for you. Another quick little tip here. Imagine I want to understand what the metadata parameter means here. I can say get help, compare SDM GPO, parameter, and what did I say I wanted to use? Metadata, right? Metadata. And now I'm just asking the system, tell me what that parameter metadata means. Okay, this is an optional parameter. It lets me specify whether I want to include GPO metadata. That's information like GUID, created, modified, links, permissions. Great. So easy, so efficient. All right, now I want to move this one step further. I want to look at a backup. A couple different things about a backup. I have this cached in here so I can show you somewhere, I believe. Yeah, here we go. So this commandlet, compare SDM GPO, I added the location parameter to say this is where my backups are stored. And within that location, within that GPO backup directory, there is going to be a backup ID of this GUID. And that's the ID that's auto-generated when you do a backup out of GPMC. So good thing to keep in mind. But then I'm comparing that backed up version of GPOA to the live version of GPOA. And again, I can do the same thing. I can look at those side by side. I can find out, from a scan or from different parameters in there, what information is in there. I can actually do my where diff type is like missing, and I can see if there's anything missing there. I might find that there's nothing missing, that they're the same, and that's a valuable thing. Okay, so don't shy away from the PowerShell side of things. There's so much value in being able to do this. Of course, if I add a parameter here to include the metadata and then look at it, I will probably come up with some, actually I won't come up with missing values, but I would come up with different values. So let's see what this type looks like. Let's see if it, I'm not sure what the property name is here. So I can always say something like out grid view. Oh, and look at it interactively like we have in the past. I could also look at get member and see what those properties look like. Okay, so I don't have any differences here to really think about. Even on the metadata side of things, the data seems to be the same from the backup to the production version, and that makes sense. If I wanted to compare that backup to GPO-B, now I have a different story, right? Because remember, GPO-B and GPO-A at one point were the same, and we're trying to detect drift. So now we're going to see differences because the GUIDs are different GPOs. We'll see lots of info that's the same, and we'll see that different from base is an important parameter, different and missing. Let me do my complex one more time. GPO-B, where diff type is like diff something, and I'm probably going to return a handful of settings where they're different from the base. Okay, so again, it's a pretty quick overview. Watch both videos, the graphical version doing this with compare, and then this one should help you get your head wrapped around what you can do with PowerShell so that you can turn it into an automated task. You write a script, it does it repeatedly. Once you're happy with it, you schedule it out and get it going. We'll put these pieces together over time, but hopefully this is helpful. Look forward to any feedback you may have, and have a great day. Thank you.